Okay, we will reconvene the meeting. Chancellor Harris?
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to introduce our host district leadership today. They don't need an introduction. You've met all of them over the last half day or so. But it's, as we said earlier, a pleasure to be here. And without any further ado, let me turn it over to Chancellor Frank Gornick, a close personal friend, one of the great CEOs in the state, to give you a presentation about the great West Hills Community College District. Frank?
Thank you, Bryce, and board members. It's a pleasure again to speak with you. I enjoyed the presentations so far, particularly Vice Chancellor Troy's discussion about the budget. I almost had to break up a food fight between my presidents and our Vice Chancellor of Finances about that budget. So it's good news, though. It's nice to be in that position talking about those kinds of situations again. I'm here today to talk to you with some of my colleagues about our experience with the Student Success Initiative. And I hope you find it instructive. We certainly have. With me is Don Workentine, our president for Lemoore. You've met Dr. Carol Goldsmith, president of Kalinga. Ken Sowden, who is our West Hills Faculty Association president. Mrs. Marty Ennis, our faculty member from West Hills Lemoore. Joel Rogers, our academic senate president, and Jeff Wanderer, who sends his regrets he couldn't cancel his class in Kalinga, so he had to get here. So, part of the reason I have these individuals up here is because we have been very successful in our implementation of the Student Success Initiative before it became law, if you will. And part of that was evolved through our strategic planning process that we've been involved in for about 15 years, and I believe we've furnished you some copies of those in your materials. In that process, we evaluate data. We courageously look at our data, the good, bad, and the ugly in terms of what we do. And the elements of student success for us are the student application, obviously, the financial aid application, assessment, educational planning, and an orientation. We do believe, just as you have found out in the Student Success Task Force, that those elements are crucial to a good beginning for students participating in higher education. These individuals who are up here with me, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've done more and better with less. And we couldn't have done that without them and without their courageous leadership as well. And our board has kept us focused on our mission. They have been relentless in terms of making sure that we extend as many educational opportunities to our students in our region that has been traditionally underserved for decades. So it's been very important to us as we move forward to include these elements in our conversation. How did we get here, and how did we begin? I think we began with some conversations about how administrators evaluate faculty, and I think that happened about maybe 5-6 years ago. Marty Ennis, who's on this panel, we decided to talk about faculty evaluation and the components of student success. And Marty said, I think that's a noble quest, but I also think that you need to take a look at the consistency in terms of how faculty are evaluated. And I was, kind of befuddled. Administrators not being consistent, how could that be? And, anyway, took a look at a couple files, more than a couple files of different evaluations, and sure enough, there's some inconsistencies there. So we knew that we had to start with us first in terms of how we approach this. And so with those kinds of courageous conversations, it was easy to move forward with our group and our leadership group. We initiated a quest for consistency across the board, both in terms of how we approach evaluations, how we implement our policies. We had realistic conversations about expectations in terms of what we would take a look at. And we began to look at data and discovered that high school students didn't enroll because they couldn't get the classes they needed, because they didn't fit our priority system. One of the things that we began to look at is, as we began to scale back our classes, we implemented what we thought might be a great priority registration system, and we decided to do it by units. And I think Don found one student who had over 200 units on his campus. And when we implemented that system, along with reduction in classes, we looked at our data one year, and we saw that we got a lot of complaints from high school students and high school counselors that, hey, what's the deal here? You know, we can't get any classes in your priority registration system because all the classes are gone, and nor did they have the units to qualify to get into the system early enough. So we began to see that we made an error there, and we needed to retool our system. So we discussed how we could improve it. And the results of these conversations created some courageous conversations about how to improve student success. Our board, in October of '09, we took a look at the existing state policy, and there was a priority registration that was existing for CalWorks, for CAMP, for DSBAs, but it didn't limit us to add additional levels of priority registration. So we began to add priority registration levels to that. We looked at high school seniors who have completed an admissions application, FAFSA, orientation, placement test, and student educational plan. Those all had to be completed before they could be involved in our priority registration system. And then we had the other groups, Group 3 and Group 4, which were 12 to 44 and 12 to 70 in terms of completing and student educational plan. The results of that really has been phenomenal for us. And I think it's obviously your job to take a look at what the implications might be statewide. But it's consistent what's occurring nationally in terms of focusing on those elements of student success. And as I said to you, we looked at the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of our data. And in 2005, you can see that 73% of the students were coming to us without an ed plan. And, you know, those were the days when we were getting a lot of enrollment, and we were basically we stand guilty that we were chasing enrollment because we were getting paid for it. But as we began to reduce the number of students and as the allocations became smaller and smaller, we began to focus. And on 2009, that's when we implemented our priority registration system. And you could see that within 4 short years, we've completely reversed the number of students who receive educational plans for our priority registration system. We think that will pay big dividends to us at the local level. And we also believe that it will pay big dividends for us as a state as the colleges move forward in terms of implementing these plans. And we think it'll be students who will be sitting in front of instructors who will be better prepared, better assessed, and have a better idea of what their next step is in terms of the courses that they're going to take for matriculation purposes. This next slide illustrates the educational plans and full-time students. One of the other pieces of data that we began to look at in our region was the fact that the number of high school students in our region was leveling off. And probably for the next 10 years, we may see a 1 or 2% fluctuation in that in our region. And you had an opportunity this morning to see some of our region. We didn't pass through a lot of towns, and most of those towns are pretty small. And so another way of looking at that is we had to create a way in which we could get better market share of those high school students. We had a conversation with one of our esteemed high school superintendents who recently retired, and I shared some data with her about the high school tests that students passed and the scores of our placement tests. And she was a little appalled and kind of hurt that I shared that information with her because it wasn't pretty good, and this was a high-performing high school. And so we got to talk about a little bit about what happens with respect to the workload in high schools. And this is one of those unintended consequences of this process, because she said to me, Frank, look, high school counselors are working on CSU and UC kids and getting them ready because they have deadlines. And we know West Hills is going to take our kids, you know. So we'll take care of those kids when we have to take care of them. And so the priority registration system was a great idea in terms of putting a deadline for us, for those students. it began to organize and coordinate our workload between the colleges and the high schools, in the sense that now we're all on the same page. Now they can talk about applications for West Hills as well as CSU and as well as UC. So that has been one of those unintended consequences and a real benefit for us in terms of managing this workload. But you can see that in this fall, again, 73% of our students with an ed plan, and the number of full-time students has been rising, and will trend about that way for the next 5 years. This gives you another view of incoming high school grads, and this dark line is actually the kind of an anomaly for us in 2010, but it's kind of a pre and post. You can see that we are, prior to the 08 and 09 years, our incoming high school feeder students were around 600. They dropped down a little bit in 2010, and we think that was because of what we learned about they couldn't get any classes when we tried that system. So when we corrected our system, you saw what happened to us, and we got up to 701 high school seniors, and that trend is upward. That trend is upward, and the total number of feeder high school graduates is also upward, but we're maintaining that level, and we struggle to maintain that level because the trend is trending downward in terms of total number of students in our high schools in our region with respect to the demographics. So this is another one that I thought you'd be interested in. This is the increase in full-time enrollment for incoming high school students. So in 08, 09, 66%, 2/3 of them were full-time. Now it's 71%. So again, if you extrapolate that on a statewide basis, the policy that you've implemented has some significant implications for us in terms of growth numbers that Dan was talking about in terms of our student body, just in terms of our area. This has been our experience, and we're continually refining it, and we think it has some positive implications for the rest of the state as well. This gives you a little bit about success and retention, and this begins to show you that the zero down at the bottom is the number of student success initiatives or matriculation requirements completed. You can see that when the more requirements completed, there is a statistically significant difference in terms of both the success and the retention of those individuals from anybody who comes in with zero requirements. Again, I think this is our evidence anyway, and hopefully it'll be the state's evidence as well that will begin to show a trend line that we can improve success and retention by paying attention to these prerequisites as students matriculate at our colleges. Success and retention rate, again, comparing that with all other students, incoming high school grads in initial fall term versus other students. You can see our retention is better for incoming high school students who have met all the requirements, and our success and retention is about the same. So we haven't hurt ourselves with these initiatives, and so all of the stories that sometimes you hear where, oh gosh, you're going to chase students away, it's just not going to happen. It goes back to the old mantra we've heard through the Student Success Task Force: students don't do optional. If you tell them what they have to do and what's the reward for doing that, a priority registration, they will generally adhere to that advice. So with the implementation of aggressive high school outreach and priority registration for high school graduates from 2009 to 11, we increased the number of incoming high school graduates in the fall term by 17.6%. Statewide, a similar increase from 13 to 14 would amount to nearly 20,000 additional students going directly into California community colleges directly from high school. And that's based on the 28% community college going rate statewide. That's nearly 20,000 additional students who have been oriented and assessed and have developed educational plans, are more likely to be full-time students, have success and retention rates as good or better than the overall student population. So high school grads entering California community colleges, in 2014, it's 13, that would have been 133,000 versus 113,000. Do you have questions of us or our panel members? We'd be happy to.
Mr. Wernick, thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah.
Member Valeno.
I just would like to know, because of the significant increase in student education plans, what's the method you use to get those plans done? Are they one-on-one, group work, or a class, or a workshop that the students come to? Or?
That's why I have this panel up here. They'll be happy to address that.
I mean, because it's the struggle, I think, that most of us are going to go through about how do you get all these ed plans done for incoming students.
It's a combination of all that you mentioned, Joseph. We start in the spring with our high schools, seniors. We bring them on campus through a tour of the campus, orientation, and then we break them up in the smaller groups, and they meet with our counselors and get their ed plans done at that time. We figure out what their educational goals are. At the same time, they do their application online here at campus, and they start their financial aid application, and so that's when we get most of our ed plans done. And then we do it again in the fall with other groups coming in. But
you
large
bring a
groups, small
large
groups,
group,
yes.
Got it.
Vice
Thank
President Ball.
Your success rates and retention rate are very impressive. And one of the things I was interested in, too, working with your communities, too, is on basic skills, because how do you get the students ready to do and succeed at the college level work? I was talking with somebody earlier about the number of international students that you have. One of the things is you don't require a TOEFL, because you have large populations within the district who already are not college ready for English language skills. So what have you done to actually bring people up so quickly to be able to be so successful?
Just to add to that, I know Marty's probably going to speak a little bit. We take a multiple approach. We do some, and many of you may have saw the agriculture programs today, where we embed basic skills into their vocational programs. We also do the same sort of methodology in other areas. The other piece that we do, when you mentioned the international students, we believe that if a student has the desire to want to be able to take a college level class, we're going to add to them, and we don't necessarily hold back from them. So they have the opportunity to try that class. And we've just implemented our supplemental instruction. We had a very strong tutoring program. We know that with the research coming out on supplemental instruction, that offers great promise. So it's not one silver bullet. It's many, many, many interventions that our faculty and counselors do. Marty, did you want to share a little?
I think one of the things from the faculty perspective is the great work that our counselors do, meeting with students and advising them on what they're really truly ready for, letting them know that if they aren't college ready, that they need to take those basic skills courses to build up. And I think that's something that we've been working really hard at here, not bypassing prerequisites, making sure that students have the strong foundation that they need so that they're being set up for success rather than for failure.
And one other aspect, we have reorganized our student services teams, our into student success teams. And when students come on campus, they're automatically assigned to a student success team based upon their academic major. Social sciences, math and science, career technical education, arts and letters, for example. And those teams consist of a counselor, an advisor, a financial aid staff person, a student worker, and they're overseen and supervised by an administrator. So we have students assigned to a team. They know who their academic advisor is, their counselor is, their financial aid staff person. We monitor them throughout the year. We know who they are, but they're in groups. We assess them. We monitor their grades. If they need tutoring, they'll be assigned a tutor or supplemental instruction. So they are followed through, and the goal is to get them in and out 2 years. No longer do we want to have students hanging around here with extra units, excess of 60 units, because we're working on our graduation rates and all that. And these teams that we think are doing great work with our kids.
How have you expanded at, because up and down the state you hear that there's not enough access to counselors, that student can't get the appointments. How have you made sure that students have access to counseling?
We employ adjunct counselors, and all of our categorical program counselors and advisors are also assigned to these teams. So it may not be a general funded counselor that's running this. It may be an EOPS counselor or a DSPS counselor that we also use. Just because they're a DSPS counselor, they're not solely servicing DSPS students, because we want them to serve all students. And so that's how we expanded our counseling staff with the
I
categorical
compliment
side.
you for making that a priority and finding ways to work within the system to
Right.
increase that access.
We put some general fund money into those special categorical programs so that we can legitimately ask them to assist us with that. We also have a great cadre of classified staff in this area. We have financial aid assistants. We have advising assistants who assist the professional staff with this process. So it's really a kind of a team effort at both of the colleges in terms of that. And then we, at the district level, we back that up with a lot of support in terms of research and to begin getting data back to the colleges that we assess on a regular basis. The colleges do, and then we routinely provide that to our board to take a look at our benchmarks that we've set up in terms of our strategic planning, in terms of how we focused. Even to the extent that our board is now considering, and it's moving through our governance process, that when they were looking at our mission statement at a recent workshop, one of our board members said, you know, that's kind of a mealy-mouthed mission statement, you know, about student success. You know, it was one of those glowing things that we said we will enhance and encourage and things like that. And she recommended that we change it to a relentless pursuit of student success. And it got the buy-in of the rest of the board members, and now we're moving it through our process. But we, you know, part of this courageous conversation, this is not a program you just can't go implement. I really do believe these early conversations that we've had, and some of the conversations that we've had with faculty about, you know, there's sometimes when I don't have a great group of kids in front of me, you know, and, you know, what are you going to do about that? You know, how are you going to look at me there? But, you know, so we take the long-term view of things. We're not into this in terms of trying to point fingers. We're trying to come up with a better process in terms of this. And so we want to make sure that we have the resources, that the colleges have the resources to support those students and those faculty members, because this isn't a process that we can implement and do it the same old way in terms of not having extending tutoring dollars or advising dollars or counseling dollars to support these students who need it, because we have the information before they come in. We know what they need and what we might be able to do to assist them in doing that, and assist the faculty member that, look, rather than the faculty member knows if they have 3 or 4 different options of resources, rather than dropping that student, there might be something else that they can refer them to.
Member Hawkins?
Wait, I just had
Okay.
My question was answered already.
Okay.
So the I was admiring the way you've prioritized enrollment too, and then in one of the group ones you added to the other something called President's Scholars. What are President's Scholars?
Well, a number of years ago, we initiated a program to recognize CSF scholars in our high schools. And some of our high schools didn't have CSF programs because they didn't have individuals to kind of pick that program up. So our foundation supported our efforts with awarding free tuition and books to a CSF student who kept their designation out of high school and came to one of our colleges, and we provided them free tuition and books to maintain that. And we made that a priority registration effort for them. We added that to their designation.
Benefit for
another
academic.
tangible benefit as well.
All funded by a great golf tournament, so we'll send you an invitation next spring.
Absolutely. My last question is just because it relates to, you said about the Student Success Task Force and how it dovetailed very nicely with what the things you had underway. One of the things we were going to consider at today's meeting, which didn't, was about and you said students don't do optional, minimum requirements for Board of Governors fee waivers. And we're getting to the point where a number of groups are saying, that's a great concept, but then we want an exception for this group or that group and all that too. I mean, from your perspective, how do you feel about requiring the minimum requirements for Board of Governor fee waivers, and how much flexibility should there be?
Well, you know, one way to look at that is you already have them at the federal level in terms of the Pell Grant. So this would not be it would be new for California, but it certainly wouldn't be new for the student who's getting financial aid in terms of the minimum requirements that are needed. So it's a different concept, not a new concept, I guess.
Any other comments?
I just had a general question about your economy and the students attending. Are they reflective of the nature of the economy being ag-based, in the sense that as ag has picked up and has done better, have you seen more of your students going back to work and dropping out of school, or are they do you see a big fluctuation in your enrollment as a result of the economy when it's so ag-based?
Well, actually, our enrollment's doing pretty good. And we think it's because we're focusing on those issues. And even if a student is working already, they have many options. And one of the options we have available to students is we have a very robust online program. And I think most of these faculty members can attest. They probably have some of their students taking an online course, and some of them already taken a face-to-face course. It's kind of a mixed bag, just because they're employed or they're doing other things. So it's we haven't seen that yet, but we are cognizant of the fact that, you know, a big portion of our enrollment is that full-time student from high school, and we also know that that is leveling off in our area and will be leveling off for another 5 to 7 years, probably, maybe even longer. So it's one that we work really hard to stay afloat on that.
In Kings County, our unemployment is about 13%, and there's talk next year of farmers even fallowing more ground because of the lack of water, so that could be another hindrance to our students, and we'll see if more of them come to school, because probably won't be as many jobs because of the water issue down here.
And just to add on to Don's, our valley, even when the rest of the nation in California is having tremendous economic times, we've historically had double-digit unemployment. And while many of our students, both of our colleges are Hispanic-serving institutions, many of our students are first-time college students, and we recognize that. And many of them are working simply because they have to work to be able to make subsistence in their home. So we, as Dr. Gornick said, we do a lot of online courses, but we also have hybrid courses, and I think many of you might have heard about that today, about our Pest Control Advisor program, where they take the bulk of their lecture course online, and they come on Saturdays and Sundays and spend a full day with us on both Saturday and Sunday. So we try to make sure we can meet the workforce needs through creative scheduling.
You may have mentioned, go ahead.
I was just going to say, related to the question about financial aid, on our next cabinet agenda, one of the things that we're discussing is whether or not we want to continue in the student loan program. You know, we have difficulty with the juxtaposition of the income level of the students who come to us and talking to them about a loan, which many of their families haven't even contemplated, and assisting them with that. And so we're having a discussion about whether or not we should begin to move those resources, if they'd be better spent if we moved them into a student employment program. And knowing, again, that the research says that the more engaged they are on campus, the greater success they'll have. And so we would be kind of investing in our own process. So financial aid, even though many of these students are qualified for it, it's a kind of a double-edged sword sometimes as well.
You may have mentioned this, and I may have missed it. How many feeder high schools do you have?
What do we have?
7 in our district.
We have, actually we have 7 in our district, but we also service Hanford and the rest of Kings County, and so we're up to around 12.
And in some of these high schools with the priority concepts in mind, I don't know if you mentioned cohort groups. Do you have specific programs on some of those campuses that you use?
Yes, we do. We have, in our ag programs, that we have a cohort group, as well as a lot of our healthcare programs, we use the cohort methodology. And it's something that we know that research bears out that it seems to work very well. Those programs that we do have, learning cohorts, whether they be around athletics or they're around a vocational area, we see that their success and retention rates are greatly improved. So it's something we're looking at and seeing how we could expand it to even other areas that we haven't historically done in the past.
So do you have that in most of the high schools, or 2 or 3, or?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Do you have that at the do you work with the high school
Yes.
staff on those?
Yes, we
needs
do.
of them?
Yes, we do. In fact, currently, right now, with one of our feeder high schools, we're working with their juniors and seniors to do a healthcare academy. That'll be classes after class, but they're able to get high school credit and college credit in the paramedic program. So the idea is that we'll take that whole group of students, and once they complete high school, they'll have the units to be able to quickly translate into our system. Yes.
Just one other program that has been very successful for us in the writing skills area is our board invested in a project called Closing the Gap about 3 years ago. And the same superintendent I talked to you about, I asked her to come on board to help us work with superintendents and faculty about talking about the expectations of what faculty wanted in college writing classes versus what we were doing in high schools. And that has had tremendous success and very promising in terms of engaging our faculty in English with high school faculty, even to the extent where they've got to trust levels of exchanging papers and grading papers so that they can see what these expectations are. And I think this year was the first year that we've had an uptick in the number of assessment scores significantly. We've had many more students qualifying for English 1A right out of high school because they've adopted the ERWC curriculum, and we're talking to the superintendents about doing more of that. And now this year we're going to move into math, so we can begin to have this dialogue with math instructors at the high school level in terms of what the expectations are of our math instructors in terms of what they expect in that algebra class, or if you're going to take chemistry, how much math do you need to know, and those kinds of things. So.
Member Malumet?
Well, I wanted to thank you for bringing this report forward because it's sort of like a sneak peek into the student success plan that we have. So thank you. I think these are great numbers and it's very exciting. And I also wanted to thank you for giving a sense of the number of students, because we talk about big schools like San Francisco and there are tens of thousands, and just to see your numbers, 600, 700, gives us a sense of perspective. So thank you for sharing all this.
Thank you for coming.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Chancellor Gornick, thank you very much. Thank all of you. And thank you for the work you do. It's very impressive. Particularly in terms of the support for the agricultural industry here, and the technological training that just seems to be used throughout the industry is, I think, very impressive. And so, thank you very much for your work, Chancellor.
Thank you. The next item, 4.2, has to do with report on prerequisites and co-requisites, and Vice Chancellor Russell will present this item that is really a report on the districts and their established prerequisites and co-requisites. Barry?
Okay, thank you very much. As some of you will remember, there's some new members on the Board of Governors, but a couple of years ago we had a very large item go through where we changed the prerequisite process for establishing prerequisites to courses. And so within that language, we wrote in that we would bring back to the Board of Governors every September a report of the number of prerequisites that were being established, because there was a concern that the state would go wild and be establishing prerequisites like crazy, and that there needed to be some monitoring of that to assure everyone that this is a thoughtful process. And so this is the second year that we brought some numbers, and so I wanted to go over those with you, and they're in your book on page 74. And we only have 2 years of numbers, so we're kind of building our list, and the numbers have gone up since last year, and that would be anticipated, that more colleges are actually changing their policy, which was the first step that had to happen, is the colleges had to change their policy of establishing prerequisites, which required a thoughtful process on campus and a discussion on campus and an adoption by their local board to change the policy. That has happened on several campuses, and so we're starting to see more of the establishment of prerequisites by content review as the major pathway of doing it. hand in hand with that establishment of by content review is also the requisite follow-up with research. And that's the level that we're at now. So even though the numbers have moved up, and just to, the first box at the top with the course sequencing shows that courses in a sequence are things like French 1, French 2, French 3, French 4. Those being established in a sequence using content review is normal. And is the increase in number there has more to do with our change in the repeatability status of courses this last year, in which some campuses have been working on adjusting their courses that were repeatable. And so as they do that adjustment, there were more courses in a sequence that came through our system. So that's why those numbers went up. The ones out of the sequence are the ones that we're more concerned with. And then the other two columns, or the third column anyway, program requirement. We didn't ask that question last year. That's why it was not applicable last year. We're kind of improving our survey now to get to more of the questions that we're getting from the researchers about prerequisites. So the one we're most interested in are the out-of-sequence courses. And so we break that down in a grid where we show the different ways in which those out-of-sequence courses, what kind of scrutiny is used to establish the prerequisite. And you'll also notice there in the 11-12 year, a lot of NAs. We did not collect the data that way last year. And one of the reports we got back from the colleges was we really needed to ask these other questions about what are the other ways in which the prerequisites were established. So we did ask that this year, and we were able to break down the information. So over the years, these will build up, and we'll be able to get a better determination. I would say right now we're still collecting data, but I do want to assure you that from the anecdotal information we get from the speaking to the faculty groups, that we feel that the increase is due to them doing it thoughtfully and doing it in the right way. We don't feel there is any problem at the moment. We have identified that there are a lot of questions on the campus about how this is done. So to that, we have already established a webinar. It's set up for October the 17th. Barbara Ilowski on my staff, a faculty member from the Academic Senate, and a researcher from the RP group are going to go together and do a webinar on how to establish prerequisites and what is meant by this content review process. Because we were getting a lot of questions from the field about this. So we're trying to respond to that by doing this webinar, making people more informed about it. But the bottom line is, I think I can assure the Board of Governors that the process seems to be working. We don't have any colleges who are changing things and causing major issues with students. But the research is still to follow. Each college now has to do research, and they need about 3 years of data to be able to demonstrate the impact of the prerequisite changes on students. So we're still in that stage, and probably in the next year or possibly the next, we'll have enough data where we can actually make a judgment call about that final move.
Has the invitation for the webinar been sent out already?
I believe so, but I just texted Barbara Ilowski, and she said that she gave me the names and the information, and I'm assuming that it's already been sent out, but
I could email her then? I'd
Yes.
like to go.
Oh, yes, right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Barry. The next item, 4.3, is a long in waiting report on professional development, and Barry is going to lead this one along with one of his colleagues, LeBaron Woodard. So let me turn this over to Barry, and we'll present the report and entertain your questions.
Okay, and I would like to introduce LeBaron Woodyard. Most of you probably know LeBaron. He's a longtime member of the staff at the Chancellor's Office and has been integral in guiding this discussion across the state. So this is following up again on the Student Success Task Force recommendation. This is recommendation number 6, 6.1, and 6.2. 6.1, create a continuum of strategic professional development opportunities. And then the next one was direct professional development resources for both faculty and staff toward improving basic skills, instruction, and support. It was recognized during the discussion of the Student Success Task Force that all of the major changes and events that needed to happen to increase student success across the state couldn't happen without a strong professional development emphasis among the colleges. And so this group was set about to kind of identify and understand what was involved in that process. And so these recommendations come back to the Board of Governors and then can inform any decisions that you make towards moving these things forward. I will have to say that this committee was probably the biggest and most diverse committee of any that I've worked on out of the many at the Chancellor's Office. There were about 2 of everybody. And we also took great care to include representatives from across the state, from all segments of the state, all constituents. I really feel strongly that the recommendations that came out of this process were done with everybody at the table. Also, LeBaron did a great job of using webinars, using electronic voting processes, and pushing out information and then having people respond electronically to try to come to consensus. Everybody had all the information. They were able then to send that information to their constituent groups and have discussions with them. And then maybe have a secondary voting process within their own constituent group, and then come back to the table and say, our group votes yes to this, or no to this, or we want to change this or that. So there was really an ongoing process of coming to consensus about all of these recommendations. 6 months and 11 meetings. They were very active. And then they did go to consultation council as well for a review a few months ago. So the obvious benefits of professional development are the employee retention, staff morale, district college efficiency, and job competency, customer satisfaction. These are popping up one by one. Hard to get the whole picture. So the very first recommendation was the recommendation of the Board of Governors that a vision statement for the state be developed. The group did spend some time, not presupposing what the Board of Governors might think a vision statement should be, but actually providing an example of what they thought would be a full and comprehensive vision statement for the state. So this was the statement that they came up with to support the mission of the California community colleges and to promote an inclusive statewide and local learning culture. All personnel will have ongoing opportunities to develop and expand the skills and practices that influence student learning and support students in achieving their educational goals. And so that was the recommendation that came forward, and we'll leave that to you to decide where to go from there. Recommendation number 2 was to change the name of the California Community College Flexible Calendar Program, which was developed some time ago. And just quick discussion, the Flexible Calendar Program is a voluntary program by the colleges to dedicate teaching days that can be set aside for staff development, mainly focusing on faculty staff development, but the campus is with a 175-day calendar. They may choose 3 days, 5 days. What's the maximum?
Maximum is 15 days.
So a college does have 15 days out there. So they reduce their teaching days, and then the faculty are then paid those days to be in some sort of staff development to increase their skills. But changing it to a more broad term of professional development was something they recommended. They also recommended that it include an emphasis of faculty, staff, and administrators in the program, that it currently has a strong focus on faculty, which is great, but it also needs to focus on the whole campus being included in the professional development activities. Recommendation 4, and you saw part of this coming out in the recent budget information you heard earlier today, was coming up with a professional development fund. Obviously, these sorts of things cost money, and even though the colleges receive the funds for the days that they're on, most of those go to paying the faculty salaries. So the additional cost of actually delivering the professional development is something that comes out of the pockets of the local districts. So the emphasis was on trying to develop, and there was a professional development fund previously. So now hopefully we can have that back in the system so that colleges can tap into those funds. There was also a recommendation that a half of 1% of the system budget be set aside, that could be the marker. And LeBaron did some checking recently, and that marker was actually historical in nature and goes back to
1988?
Yeah, 1988, when that was established back then as kind of the floor of where professional development needed to be. I kind of liken it to in many cities and so forth, where the architectural requirements for public buildings require a 1% art fund for architectural spaces, public spaces, and things like that. This is kind of the same sort of thing. It's an emphasis on the need for professional development. And then also developing a statewide advisory committee to guide the state on the colleges on how this program should be put together. This is something that we can do out of the chancellor's office. And closely related to that is a strong leadership role by the chancellor's office. And you may remember that many of the recommendations within the task force said that they wanted a stronger role of the chancellor's office in many of the initiatives. Professional development also being one of those, that the group felt like by having more information coming directly from the chancellor's office out to the campuses about certain professional development opportunities, that it would create a stronger connection for the colleges and more impetus for getting involved. And then the last one is building a virtual professional development resource center. So we've already actually started developing the background of what this resource might look like. It could be connections to existing professional development opportunities, but it also could be a place where campuses could post their professional development activities, so that especially in highly populated areas where there might be a lot of overlap and exchange, where faculty could share across campuses. If there's a bulletin board that says where things are happening or what kinds of training are going on, there could be more sharing across the system. And so we're already trying to develop that and get that up and going. And hopefully that will also be a strong part of the online initiative that you heard about last Board of Governors meeting, where we'll be pushing out more of an online process for students. So just a quick summary. The vision statement was very important, making sure appropriate resources are available, and requires the statutory change in order to be implemented. Those would have to come back to the Board of Governors or go to the legislature. And that's the end of the list. So if there are any questions, LeBaron will answer all your questions.
Well, that's great work. That's quite a committee you had there. I guess, did the committee make a recommendation about the size of the advisory committee? Maybe not. Okay. Questions, comments? Member Hawkins?
Thank you, President Baca. I'd like to commend LeBaron and Barry and the task force for their work. This is, in my opinion, long overdue, and I'm encouraged by the fact that we're trying to fund it, but a little disappointed as how I'm perceiving this being implemented in the field. One of the biggest problems with the Flex Day problem is that it really excludes classified employees, because most of those events occur at the beginning of a term, when classified employees or professionals are working to ensure student success, because it's built around the academic PDD. So I would really like to see some way that we have some sort of teeth in directing throughout the fiscal year that all classified employees receive some sort of professional development training. And I know the word mandatory was removed from the original task force recommendation for varying reasons, but somehow we have to put that in there, or the classified employees will remain, or the long-standing history of them not getting access to professional development. So that's a big concern for me, folks.
But the recommendations does include a recommendation for all employees, faculty, staff, as well as administrators. And for those colleges that would participate, if this program was to be implemented and funded, if the college came in and participated under this new structure, it would include all staff. They would still have the opportunity to identify and use the model of the Flex program, which is to identify days to do professional development, and that can occur throughout the year. It would be up to the local college as to what days they wanted to identify, how many days. Barry talked about the flexible calendar. We have 95% of the colleges participating in flexible calendar now. The average number of days is 5.5 days. We have 2 colleges with 14 days. We have 9 colleges with less than 2 days. And so, and we included in the back of the report the descriptive statistics related to that. So this program, if implemented, would allow for all employees to be a part for those districts that are participating.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you both, Vice Chancellor Dean.
Let me make one additional comment, if I might. I do believe that there are some recommendations that this board would benefit from having a proposal from us to the board. So why don't we agree, in light of the report, some of the recommendations that are in it, and some of the comments that have been made, to come back to the board at a subsequent meeting with some specific recommendations that may bring a little bit more, as Danny said, a little bit more teeth to the recommendations that the committee works so hard to do.
Yeah, I think we'd all appreciate that. Member?
And just to kind of piggyback on what Danny said, to also say it, by doing, the professional development days at the beginning of a semester, you also pretty much take out all your student services faculty, because it's peak registration and it's the time to be doing your ed plans and orientation and assessment. And so it does need some teeth so that everybody, and then in the other thing we talked about, it would be research based. So it wouldn't just be anything, and anything is now professional development, that, oh, well, you're going to get a back rub this afternoon and that's 2 hours of professional development.
Here, here.
Does that go far enough?
But that works.
Does that work for you?
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Thank you, Bryce.
You bet.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to, there's Keitha right there. Keitha, I'll let you pull your report up. The next item is from our foundation, the California Connects Sustainable Broadband Program. Keitha and her colleagues at the foundation have been helping to work us all bridge this digital divide. And so I'm going to give her a half a second, look how quick she is. Fabulous. All right, with that, I will turn it over to Keitha Mills.
Still got it, here we go. Got it. Thank you, President Baca, Chancellor Harris, members of the board. So I am going to talk with you a little bit this afternoon about our California Connects program. It's a digital literacy program that was run at the statewide level. It was developed in partnership with the Chancellor's Office and funded through a federal grant. So I'll start and talk a little bit about where the investment originated. So the investment came from basically the Recovery Act. There was $4.7 billion that was invested at the federal level that was made available through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And that money was set aside to support national broadband infrastructure, expand public computing centers throughout the nation, encourage broadband service adoption, and to maintain broadband service availability on a nationwide basis. In connection with that fund, there was $10.9 million that was awarded in August of 2010, so about 3 years ago, to the foundation in partnership with the Chancellor's Office. And that money was awarded from the Broadband Technology Opportunities Program that was funded through this $4.7 billion investment from the Recovery Act. And we are in California one of the largest recipients of this BTOP funding. So it was a significant investment made from the federal level in the state of California through the California Community Colleges system. The overall goals of California Connects, the program was really designed to help bridge the digital divide, and then also because this money was coming through the Recovery Act funds, the program was also designed to really boost the overall California economy. So some of the goals related to the program were that overall we were looking to increase broadband internet usage and adoption throughout California and focus primarily in the Central Valley region. And we were doing this by awarding about 5,800 laptops to underserved students and then using those students and some other resources to enlist about 61,000 new broadband adopters, primarily in the Central Valley region, but also statewide. We were using digital literacy training and outreach campaigns to help people understand why it was important, why the internet's important, and how to use the internet in their everyday lives. We were working to improve access to education, healthcare, all kinds of other community-based resources that are available on the internet. And at the end of the day, we were looking to improve economic development for communities that may have otherwise been held back or limited by their lack of access to broadband technology. We had a number of partnerships that were made possible by this federal grant and investment of funds. And I think the most important partnership, again, was the partnership between the foundation and the Chancellor's Office that really provided the statewide leadership and kind of program operational support to make this program possible throughout the state. We really worked very closely together, not only to lead the program, but also to coordinate with other important partners in the programs. We had a number of partner colleges that we'll talk about a little bit later. We had a very significant community-based organization in the Central Valley that was an important partner. And then, of course, we were able to leverage some of the corporate partnerships that the foundation has been fostering over a number of years to help provide benefit to this program. Another important partnership that was made possible by this federal grant was the partnership between the California Community Colleges Mathematics, Engineering, Science, and Achievement, or MESA centers, and then the Great Valley Center. And the Great Valley Center is a community-based center that focuses in the Central Valley. And these two groups really partnered together to provide that boots-on-the-ground training to help their communities understand where public computing centers exist, educate their communities about affordable access to broadband technology, and they were also out there providing training in multiple languages in their communities. And you can really see here this graph, the reach that the program had. The yellow dots represent our 35 California Community College MESA program centers, and then the blue section in the middle is the service area from the Great Valley Center. So this was a really important partnership to get really broad reach throughout California. Just to say a few more words about the Great Valley Center, they are a community-based organization, a nonprofit organization that operates across an 18-county region in the Central Valley, and their partnership, again, helped us amplify the program reach and really helped us focus on low-income Hispanic residents who are traditionally underserved when it comes to broadband access. And I think, our most important partner, or one of our most important partners, and of course our largest partner for California Connects, was our MESA centers. So the MESA centers really provided statewide outreach from 35 California Community College campuses. And so all of the MESA centers participated, and this was really key in taking this federal funding and infusing it into our colleges and really getting the money all the way down to the students. And we did that by providing free laptop computers to a select group of MESA program students who basically had to apply to participate in the program. And in exchange for the laptop computers, the MESA students were expected to go out into their communities, to go home to their families, and provide this broadband internet training both to their communities and their families. Many of you may know the MESA program. It's a long-standing program of the California Community Colleges, and it's really focused on those students who are studying in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math. I mentioned corporate partners. We had a number of corporate partners, many of whom you'll recognize from previous presentations that I've done about our relationships with a number of corporate partners. So when we went to purchase these laptop computers, we thought, well, it's not enough to just give them the laptop computer. The laptop needs to have resources that the students need to help them pursue their educational goals. So we partnered with HP and Insight to basically provide these plug-and-play laptop computers to our MESA students. AT&T equipped the laptop computers with 6 months of free 4G Wi-Fi service, so they were ready to roll and able to connect to the internet. Adobe equipped the laptop computers with Adobe PDF Reader and Flash. Microsoft loaded on the Microsoft Professional Plus software and also provided our students access to the Microsoft IT Academy. And then Certiport then established testing centers at all 35 community college MESA centers so that once the students were able to train through the Microsoft IT Academy, they could then take the exams and obtain certifications in things like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Access. And these testing centers will of course, outlive the grant as well. So another kind of great partnership that was made possible by this infusion of funding. American River College was another really important partner. Not only did American River participate with their MESA program, but they also worked with the program to develop a Living with Technology tool, and this was a tool that was developed by faculty on staff with American River College. And this tool was also available on the internet and provided our trainers tools to train on job hunting, resume development, exploring higher education opportunities, accessing healthcare and financial resources, all sorts of kind of community-based resources that are available through the internet. So overall, the overall impact was that we were able to distribute 5,800 well-equipped laptop computers to California community college students participating in the program. And you'll see a quote here from one of our participants, Marisha Vasquez. She says, "I appreciate the support. Now I will be able to help others. Thank you so much." We set an initial goal for the program to train at least 61,000 community members throughout the state of California. We have well exceeded that goal. We have trained over 68,000 and still training. We expect the program to run through December, so we expect by the end of the program that we will have well exceeded our original goals. And this program has really worked to provide first-time access to people who never really realized what the internet could do for them in their everyday lives. And this is a quote here from one of our trainees, Chrislyn Lawrence. Chrislyn says, "Check out California Connects. Help your city get connected to web-wide opportunities and learn how to keep up in this technological age while acquiring a Microsoft education." So overall, we feel really proud of what we were able to accomplish with these federal funds. The program has been highlighted at the federal level as one of the premier grantees, and we feel really proud of the impact that we've made in California, not only in increasing digital literacy, but also in improving overall California economy and economic development. So looking forward, these grants, they sort of come and go. It was an $11 million investment, a significant investment for our organization and our state, but it has a life to it. It was a 3-year grant granted in August of 2010. We expect it to wrap up in December of 2013. So at the foundation, as we look to acquire these grants, we're always thinking about how do we sustain, what are parts and pieces of this program that can continue after the grant funding has been expended. So what we're looking at over the next 6 months through the end of the program is trying to pilot a sustainable, low-cost internet service that we might be able to provide to our California community college students well beyond the program. So through the last 6 months of this program, we've partnered with an organization called Mobile Citizen to pilot this low-cost wireless technology. Mobile Citizen is another nonprofit. They're funded by 5 foundations that are basically committed to technology and increasing digital literacy. Mobile Citizen has partnered with Clear. You may have heard of Clear. Clear is a 4G broadband service provider. And basically, Mobile Citizen, in partnership with Clear, is providing this very low-cost mobile internet option exclusively to education and other nonprofit organizations. So what we're going to do over the next 6 months is to partner with these organizations, utilize the remaining some of the remaining funding from the federal grant, and provide this service, these free 4G wireless service, to at least 500 users that are within the Clear network coverage area, and we'll basically pilot this over the next 6 months. So during the pilot, we're going to assess kind of the long-term viability. Is this a good option for our students? Is this service provider a reliable service provider? Sort of that sort of thing. And if we find that this solution is a viable solution, that is something that we would want to offer to our students, the idea would be that we would fold that into our College Buys program offerings. So very similar to our partnership with Microsoft, where Microsoft offers us what I often refer to as a screaming deal on Microsoft Office products. We would then look to negotiate the same type of deal with Mobile Citizen and Clear Network to negotiate a very low rate that we could then pass on to our California community college students. So this final graph just shows it's not a statewide reach. They are very focused Central Valley, Bay Area, and then a bit in the South. So our sustainability option will not originally reach all of our California community college students, but the hope is that as this partnership continues to grow and as the CLEAR network continues to grow, that the offering will continue to grow for our students as well. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions or comments.
Member Belansky?
Just a couple of questions. The Living with Technology, is that a tool that's available to anyone and everyone throughout the state?
You know, that's a great question.
Because as I read it, I kept thinking, well, why don't we use that and get more
You-
students involved with it?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out and let you know.
Thank you. And just so I'm clear again, the Mobile Citizen even is just a pilot at the moment.
It is. So at the current moment, we're making it available to 500 users that are currently involved in the program, but we're hoping in January of 2014, assuming everything goes well, that it will then be available broader to our students.
Just out of curiosity, Los Angeles is handing out iPads to all the students. So even though these were carefully picked students, were there any damages or losses? What happened in the end?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, and I don't know, I don't have any kind of anecdotal evidence on that. I am certain that we had laptops that were lost and stolen and that sort of thing. I believe as part of the package there was some, again, insurance provisions provided, but you know what, I don't really have a lot of anecdotal evidence on that, so I'm sorry.
Will you ever be able to find that out?
I will.
Be interested. Just
Yeah.
again, they're very special students who got them, so I'm sure they took extra care. But still interesting to learn about, because people in Los Angeles are kind of wary about how that will really work.
Yeah, we had a lot of conversation around laptops versus smartphones and that sort of thing, because a lot of the students now are moving away from laptops and moving into iPads and smartphones and that sort of thing. And I think for this program, if we were rolling it out again, we would probably do it differently with a different type of device, just given kind of where where students are going with their technology. But I think 3 years ago, laptops were still pretty predominant, and I think given the partnerships that we had, that was the direction we decided to go. But I'll definitely try to get some more information about.
Have you heard any information about the other programs where the rest of the money went around the U.S.?
So we were one of the largest. I think we were the second largest grant, and what I do know is that our particular program has received a number of accolades from the federal office. They have used our program in meetings with the other grantees to talk about kind of best practices and accomplishments and things that have worked for us, and modeled our program along with our kind of peer group grantees.
That's great. Thank you.
Great. Any other members?
First of all, thank you very much, Keitha, for your report. And congratulations on all the success.
Thank you.
Just a couple of quick questions. In terms of the 68,000 people who now are able to obtain those resources, I mean, was that figure? I mean, is that through like survey data? That you were able to find out that there were that kind of multiplier?
Yeah, that's a great question. So each of our trainers, through the 5,800 MESA students that were involved in the program and the trainers that were made available through the Great Valley Center, those folks were required to keep pretty detailed logs of the people that they touched and the training that they provide and how many folks obtained the training. So that is real data that was actually required to be gathered by the federal government to meet program goals.
I see. Okay. And the other thing I was just curious about, in terms of for the mobile citizen and assessing the long-term viability, how long will that kind of assessment period be before you kind of figure out how things are going?
Yeah, we're expecting the full assessment period will be about a 6-month period. My hunch is that within a probably 2 to 3 month period, we'll know whether it's working or not working. And what we're hoping is that if there are things that aren't working, that we'll have a long enough period with the grant funding to kind of work out the kinks, so that when the grant funding is complete, that we'll be ready to roll something out that we feel pretty confident in. And we expect that to be probably a January 2014 timeline.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Any other comments?
Thank you, Keitha, very much.
Thank you.
President Baca, members of the board, we're going to make a little bit of a agenda switch here. Vince Stewart, our Vice Chancellor for State and Federal Legislative Relations, had a family health emergency this afternoon. He will be here first thing in the morning, but that never slows us down, and thankfully Vice Chancellor Von Ton Quinn-Livin is going to, along with some of our colleagues, make a brief report on adult ed this afternoon. And then we do have one member of the audience who did have a comment on the state and federal relations activity. So we're going to go ahead and take that comment as part of the public forum after this report and before we adjourn for today. So with that, Von, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chancellor Harris. At the opening of today's meeting, President Baca talked about the Adult Education Transition Grant that is before us, and I'm joined in this presentation by my Dean of Career Education Practices, Deborah Jones, whom you've met, and of course, you know Barry. And as we lay out the plan that for moving forward, it will help you understand all the roles that we are playing in a very integrated way. And all of us will have a chance to share some of our thoughts and observations. So this is item number 5.1. So we call the Adult Education Transition Grant AB 86 for short. And the AB 86 asks us to do joint planning with the California Department of Education regarding the Adult Education Transition Grant. As you can imagine, this is a very, very complex undertaking, not only to support the educational needs of adult learners, as was stated in AB 86, but clearly there are a lot of constituents as well as a lot of perspectives involved in this planning process. So we established some of the principles in terms of this planning process, one of which was equity of representation in terms of seats at the table. Second was to design an inclusive process so that we could be sure to hear the opinions of the various experts, constituents, and the field. And then thirdly, to design a transparent process so that we could ensure to gather information that informs the process. So given that, Chancellor Harris communicated with Superintendent Torlakson and solicited their designee for this process. They provided us with 3 individuals from their agency. And so under the principle of equity of representation, 3 from our side joined to form an AB 86 cabinet. So this is the first of 4 structures designed to ensure that we have an inclusive and transparent process. So on the cabinet on our side includes Vice Chancellor Russell, as well as Vice Chancellor Stewart and myself. So we meet on a regular basis now on Fridays, every Friday at 9 o'clock, in order to understand the progress and ensure that the work is proceeding in a regular pace. Now, the work group itself is actually a work group comprised of equal representation on both sides. On our side, the designee from the Chancellor's office is Dean Deborah Jones. She was requested by name by the Department of Finance to lead this effort of AB 86. I had recruited her over here because of her administrative skills, but in her former life, she actually led the adult education system at the California Department of Education. So it was a bit of a 2-for-1 to have her expertise involved. So on our side, we have Dean Deborah Jones. On the California Department of Education side, they provided an agency person. And then in addition, there are 2 field representatives from the adult education side the K-12 side and 2 field representatives from our side. The qualities that we agreed upon by the cabinet in terms of looking for these field representatives were, one, that they needed to be credible with their peers. Secondly, was that they were willing to provide the time commitment. This is a huge undertaking, and we're asking them 2 days a week for a fair number of months. So we're very thankful that all these individuals have stepped up to the plate, and we're later going to ask Dean Deborah Jones to give a report of the kickoff. And in addition, equity of representation on that work group. So that work group is spending 2 days a week for the ensuing months in order to really wrestle with how to shape the planning process. Furthermore, we know that this group is going to begin to inventory all the issues that we must tackle collectively in order to plan. And so as they do this, as they identify and prioritize these issues according to resources, they will be tapping into a third category of governance called expert panels. So depending on the issue, they will be reaching out to different experts in order to inform the issues. Of course, this will include faculty and many other constituencies that we have who can provide expertise. And then lastly, this group will also be identifying additional constituents that need to come to the table in a form of a stakeholder sounding board. So you can imagine we have a CBO, we have CIOs, there are many also adult ed organizations that we'd like to bring to the table to test the framework and to ensure that we have heeded their advice and listened to their counsel. So these are the 4 structures that we have set up, and there's lots of opportunity to be involved through the various structures. But again, the key principles were to design an equity of representation, to design an inclusive process, and to design a transparent process. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dean Deborah Jones. What we tasked the work group was, most importantly, that they were working on an additive scenario. So in the K-12 adult education system, they have a baseline of a roughly $300 million in system. In our side, we have about a $200 million non-credit system. This work is not about tackling the baseline. This is about figuring out the consortia structure such that we can gain the confidence of the legislature to add funds to the collective system to address the needs of working adults. So that's a very important point. This is not about going into the baseline. It's about additive funds. So let me turn it over to Deborah first, and then ask Barry to make some closing comments.
Thank you, President Baca, Vice President Baum, Chancellor Harris. So last Thursday and Friday, the group met. We began with 18 people, 6 from the cabinet, 3 from CDE, 3 from the Chancellor's office. And then the 6 representatives each have an identified alternate. That's just to keep the consistency of the workflow going. We began and talked about the principles of how we work together. As you can imagine, bringing 12 leaders from across the state, we had to find those principles and that common value system. Each person had to transcend the advocacy groups that they work for, the constituents that they represent, and say, we're going to do what's right for the state of California, what AB 86 has charged us to do, and create a regional delivery system for adult education. Some of the things that we tackled were timeline. We worked backwards from when we need to have an RFA out to the field. We're beginning to look at the different ways that we can create regions. That's the biggest question that everybody has. What is a region? So that was a great discussion. There are 2 reports required by AB 86. That was part of the timeline, March of 14 and March of 15, when we'll report upon the status. A website will be created for everyone to access. It will be full of information and all of the updates. We talked about that, brought in a website designer and looked at that. We Also began looking at mapping and what that means, the current assets that are out there on both sides, the current providers, the gaps, looking at the map of California. And we hope on a website to have an interactive map that actually shows the providers, shows the need, and shows parts of California where there are no longer or haven't been adult education providers. And those are the gaps that AB 86 charges us to fulfill. And there are 4 states, Oregon, Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois, that have gone through some sort of a transition. Either governance of their adult education system has changed, or they have moved from single delivery system to a regional delivery system. So that's the homework for this week. Each of the work group members is actually contacting the states, working with their state directors, looking at the RFAs that went out, the letters of interest, all of the tools so that we don't have to recreate wheels when we don't need to. And we will be meeting again on Friday. Chancellor Russell, Vice Chancellor Russell.
Well, the main thing that I want to point out is that the work that's being done here is highly complex, politically, socially, in every kind of aspect, because it scares people to death, obviously, when you take a system that's been entrenched for years and years into 2 systems and disjunct, and as we call it, the Swiss cheese approach, where there are lots of places in the state where there is no coverage of adult education, and some places where it's very strongly covered. We claimed right up front that one of the values that we set was that 100% of the state, at the end of this process, 100% of the state would be covered, that there would be no Californian who would not have access to adult education in the state. So that's something we kind of laid on the table right up front, because we feel like that's very important. No matter what system and who's providing it, we need to make sure that that's there for the California citizens. So it's been great working from the beginning of this. Vaughn has done a wonderful job of pulling together the people that need to be at the table. We have de-escalated a lot of the tension in the room that started in the very first meetings of everybody holding on to their piece of the pie or their teddy bear or whatever it was that they wanted to keep. Now we're kind of openly having this discussion about what is this new system going to look like. So it's very exciting. We're just peeking over the edge right now, but I hope maybe every board meeting, because it's going to move very fast, it might need to have an update of kind of where we are at that point.
Well, thank you very much. I hardly need to impress upon you the fact that this is a population that for the last few years has been impacted more severely maybe than other populations. It includes a high-risk population that absolutely needs this attention, and I recognize the complexities of it, both politically and in terms of more practical aspects, but it's an important piece of work that should and will lead to improving the delivery to the adult learner. So thank you very much. I wish you best of luck doing that. Vice President Baum, did you have anything? Anyone else? Chancellor?
Thank you all. I just again want to underscore that the original volley fired was to just flip a switch and have community colleges take over all of adult ed. And as the 3 of them have said, that caused a number of pretty bifurcated feelings and a lot of bunker mentality. These 3 really have done a yeoman's job already in reducing the temperature and getting people to a point where they at least can talk about it. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We are now going to break and reconvene in the morning at, I'm sorry. Let's back up. Let's go to public forum. Vice President Baum.
First, I understand there was somebody here that wanted to address the state and federal legislative update. Do I have a card? He's part of these 2. Okay, first is John Queen from the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges.
I want to thank the board for giving this opportunity, and in fact, I'll be very brief.
FAC appreciates the support of the Chancellor's Office, the Chancellor, and the broad support from the various constituency groups in lobbying against AB 955, and urges all the groups to contact their members of the Senate and the Assembly this week before the final vote. Thank you.
Next is Rich Copenhagen and Michelle Christensen from the Student Senate for California Community Colleges.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. There we go. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to see you all. I'm really excited to be here in West Hills College. We had a wonderful time on the tour this morning. It was very, very impressive. I'm going to be going back to my personal district with a lot of news about things that they could possibly learn from West Hills. So with me today is Michelle Christensen, who is one of our senators on the board representing the Riverside area, Moreno Valley College specifically. And she is also our appointed second representative to the Board of Governors here to bring the Student Senate's perspective to the board. I'm here just on a couple very quick things to give you a brief update on the Student Senate. This last weekend we had our third business meeting for this term. We discussed a great plethora of things. It was actually very on point to hear about adult ed. We talked about Common Core and kind of how we're relating to the K-12 system, and adult ed fits right into that picture, preparatory work for our college students. And we also are finalizing some dates and permits for the March in March, which we do every year. This year it'll be March 3rd, and we would appreciate any involvement that the Board of Governors and our partner organizations. The Chancellor's Office has been very supportive of our advocacy work and making sure that the community college system is heard during the budget process. And Michelle Christensen will give some information on our General Assembly, which is coming up in November.
Good afternoon. I also want to thank you for allowing me to be here. I thoroughly enjoyed our tour this morning. More than I expected. I'm telling you, I'm very overwhelmed. It's like, wow, they've done all this. I mean, the efforts that have been put into it is amazing. I've seen some stuff that I've not seen at four-year institutions. So bravo to you down here. I don't know if they all left or not, but also, like Rich said, I'd like to give you some information. Our General Assembly is coming up. It'll be November 1st through the 3rd, and we will be meeting in Monterey this year for the fall. So you're all welcome to attend. We'd love to have you. I know there's a couple of our partner groups that we're looking to reach out to and have them come speak. Chancellor Harris, we'd love to have you speak at General Assembly if you wouldn't mind. It's not that far of a drive for you. It's Monterey. Took the 3-hour drive here. You can do the not so long over there. So once again, thank you. I extend an invitation to all of you and look forward to the next couple of board meetings. Thank you.
And to close, we would like to extend our great excitement that Jenna Barrera will be representing the students on the Board of Governors. We are super excited that that the Governor's Office has appointed her as the voting member, and we are out of time, but we are going through we're going through the process to bring a non-voting member, a set of applications to the Governor's Office, and the Governor's Office has assured us that they will be getting back on track with making sure that we have 2-year appointments going through in the proper cycle. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both, and you can be impressed further because President Workentine has a visit in the morning at his West Hills campus, so look forward to that. That'll be at 9 a.m., and I believe that we are, well, not sure what time we're being picked up, Jerry?
I think we're coming over on our own.
Just come over on our own. Okay, great. All
Can I
right.
ask a question related to that? Where would we park if we come in our own vehicles?
Right.
Actually, we're going to have out by the flagpole. There's 30-minute parking. We're going to allow some parking spots there.
Okay.
Look for the flagpole.
Thank you.
And
Look for the flagpoles.
And following the tour, we will reconvene at 10 a.m. to continue our board meeting. But before all that, we will be going to dinner at West Hills College Leemore Golden Eagle Arena. and that's 5:30 to 8, so we've got a little bit of time, but
Bands to take the board back to the hotel.
yeah, we have several SUVs that will go back and then bring us back here.
Right out there.
Okay, so we'll go back to the hotel and then come back. All right? Okay.
Go to the casino.
Wait, members
Yes.
Zumi?
Can we leave our materials here? And,
Yes, we can leave the material.
okay, okay, terrific.
We'll,
At the front of the hotel.
if they leave at 5:15 from the hotel, will they be back here by 5:30? I think we'll just bring the vans back, if you don't mind. So 5:15 out in the lobby of the hotel, to be back here at 5:30. Yeah.
No, we didn't meet there this morning.
Loud enough, but he did.
Yeah, in the
He
morning.
moved.
Absolutely.
Drive over here tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if they have a computer lab. I may just stay here and work.
Okay.
Is the bus here now?
Well, I think about, yeah, or even 20 and 9.